Hey, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, maybe good morning, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. I am, as always, honored, excited, and just utterly geeked to get to host another Power to Fly virtual event. Now, before we dive in and get y'all introduced to our speakers, I just want to go over a couple quick housekeeping items. These will be especially important if maybe this is your first Power to Fly event. If that's the case, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you today. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers. I absolutely love seeing the familiar names, faces in the chat. So thank you all so much for joining us as well. So the big thing to know about our events is that they are about you. They're about our community members and making sure that you all get the value that you came to get from today's event. We encourage y'all to participate in any way you would like. There's a couple different options. You're always welcome to turn your cameras on for it if you'd like to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. But there is no need to be Instagram perfect, y'all. We just want you to join us where you are. Whether that is your living room couch or corner office, makes no difference to us. Now, if you want to participate, but you don't want to turn your cameras on, that's completely fine, y'all. It is not a big deal. You're always welcome to add questions or comments into the group chat. And in fact, I'm going to encourage y'all to head over there right now. Let us know where you're joining from. I'm always really eager to see how far our global audience spreads. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So please feel free to let us know where you're joining from, or if you know whose land you're on. Now, the big thing to remember about today's event is that we are recording it. So what that means for you is you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, and really enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with two of the wonderful people from Siemens. Now, before we go in there, I just want to remind y'all, we are live streaming to our YouTube channel as well as to our website. Hi, YouTube. So you can always head over there if you want to check out the recording. It's usually posted within about 5 to 15 minutes of the end of the live stream. If you don't want to head over there, and like I said, I'll share links for all of this in the chat. If you don't want to head over to YouTube, that's okay. You can always check out the recording on our website. We're going to send everybody an email when it's posted to powertofly.com, so you can always rewatch it there. Now, I do, like I said, encourage y'all to add questions or comments into the group chat. I'm loving all of the responses here, y'all. We've got Atlanta, Houston, Texas, Ontario, Dayton, Ohio. Hi, Dayton. The Philippines, Atlanta, Delaware. Sorry, y'all. All kinds of stuff. So thank you all for tuning in today. We're really, I love to see all the participation. So thank you all for chiming in there. Like I said, please feel free to ask questions or add comments in the chat. Maybe you asked a question at registration and you're not sure if we're going to get to it, ask it in the chat. If we are going over your question and maybe there's some more details or something that you think we should know about, let us know. Ask it in the chat. I want to make sure that we bring y'all the value that you came to get from today's event. So as we go here, there we go. Really excited to go in and introduce you to today's speakers. But before I do that, I just want to remind y'all that they are here today on behalf of Siemens. Now, Siemens is a great partner with Power to Fly. We've been partnered with them for quite a number of years now. But I'm really eager to dig in and learn a little bit more from our panelists today on what coexisting at work, with your career as well as yourself, has meant for them and what that looks like at Siemens. So I do encourage you, if anything that we talk about today really perks your or sparks your interest in Siemens, take a look at their company page on powertofly.com. Again, like I said, I'll share links for all of this as we go. You can learn more about their company, the culture. There's information. They're all really great info about the org. You can also take a look at events. So that'll show you future events that they might have planned with us, as well as past events that they've partnered on with us. So really great fodder there if you are interested in potentially interviewing at Siemens. There's some great stuff there that would be useful in an interview to kind of bring up and show off how interested you are in the company. And then, as always, you can search and apply to jobs right from powertofly.com. Just remember, if you do apply for roles through Power to Fly, just make sure that you are following all of the steps that you're being given to complete that application process, especially if you're directed to the company's ATS or outside website. All right, now, very excited to introduce you to our two speakers. First off, we have Janet Baskinger. Now, Janet is a tax director at Siemens. She joined them in 2002 in Iceland, New Jersey. Now, she later relocated to Atlanta, Georgia in 2008, where she became involved with the Siemens Ability ERG and the Special Olympics of Georgia. Janet enjoys being a member of the Siemens Ability ERG, which creates awareness and provides support to Siemens employees with disabilities. She's also a member of the Strategic Council for Disability and Inclusion. Janet, welcome to the stage. We're so happy to have you. Is there anything else you think our audience should know about you before we dive into questions today?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here. I should have mentioned that I am the mother of a 26-year-old daughter with Down syndrome. So I did not mention that, but that is my passion for being so involved with our Siemens Ability ERG.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's always really interesting to see, how people, the things that happen in our lives that lead us to different, kind of to different niches or to different interests. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Janet. Now, joining Janet on stage is going to be Lizi Adkins. Now, Lizi is an associate client service manager with Siemens. She started with them in 2015. In Johnson City, Tennessee, before she also moved to Atlanta in 2018 to join Siemens Smart Infrastructure. Lizi is a proud member of the Siemens Ability ERG and is also part of the Strategic Council for Disability and Inclusion. That council works with leadership to make Siemens more accessible to and inclusive of persons with disabilities. Lizi, welcome to the stage. We're so happy to have you as well. Is there anything else our audience should know about you?
I guess I'll follow Janet's lead on this one. And where my passion comes from is living with mental illness, mental disability, and as well as neuropathy from a physical standpoint. So, she comes at it from a caregiver's perspective. I come at it from, living with it. So it's two sides of a coin, and it works really, really well for us.
Thank you both for sharing that. Obviously it's the topic at hand today, but we really appreciate y'all, trusting us and coming to bring this really candid and transparent look at what has brought y'all here. I'm also a member of the mentally ill community and the neurodivergent and all of that stuff. So Lizi, you are in good company here. Janet, same as well. I cannot wait to dive in and talk some more on this subject. So, all right, let's go ahead and do that. I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll dive into questions here. I just want to highlight for all of y'all, again, if you have questions, please feel free, ask them in the group chat. I would love to raise any questions that you want to ask, but stay anonymous. So please feel free to DM me if you've got questions. And we will just start going on through our event today. All right, some of the questions that we got at first were a lot like around the same area. A lot of people wanted to talk about what it actually means to bring your authentic self to work. So let's go from both of your perspectives. Lizi, or Janet, sorry, do you want to start us off and kind of share with us what bringing your authentic self really means when it comes to your life and your career journey?
Well, I should say that thankfully I work for the most supportive department at Siemens, I think, the tax department. And I've been with them, like I said, since 2002. So everyone knows my story, my life, and where my passion for people with disabilities comes from. So, some days they could tell things may not be going so great at home, and maybe it's not a great day for me to deal with those issues, and maybe tomorrow will be a better day. But thankfully, they're so inclusive and welcoming that I'm able to be honest with them and tell them, sorry, today isn't going to work. Or like we had a situation today, I thought I was going to be very late for this call because sometimes my life isn't under my control. So
there it is. That I want y'all to remember this, okay? Your life is not always under your control, and that's not your fault, okay? We don't get to control a lot of stuff in this life. No, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's good to know that this is something that Siemens wants to support. And I think it's also really important that we talk about this both from like a personal experience as well as a caregiver, because it is really easy if you're not inside this community or you don't have anyone in your life that deals with disability, mental illness, literally any of these. It's really, really easy to just not have any idea what that group might need. And let's also talk about how everybody within that group is also completely, needs completely disparate things. One person is not a monolith. No diagnosis is a monolith, and no one person represents an entire group. So yeah, I think it's really, really important that we talk about that.
And Meg, I really think with the one good thing that did come out of COVID was so much awareness around this topic. I mean, if that's one good thing, right?
It got us talking about a lot more about what our work lives look like in contrast to what our home lives look like. And that's one of those things that like we said it a ton during COVID, right? Was that everybody was in the same storm, but we're all in different boats. And I think that what a lot of the conversations we've been able to open up are because we had a literal window into someone else's life. You weren't just seeing them in the context of, that's Jennifer, she sits at that cubicle over there, and every day she brings a pickle sandwich and that's it. Like, we now got a peek into how other people actually live. And I think there's been a lot of surprises around how many people's lives actually look like yours and you think they wouldn't, and how different people's lives look than what you think they might look like. Lizi, how about you? What was your, what does it mean for you to bring your authentic self to work?
For me, I think in a lot of the defining moment was after, my diagnosis came from being hospitalized and massive medication changes and all, it was a whole big ordeal. And when I came back, of course, some people were, where were you? I just made the decision I wasn't going to hide that I had this diagnosis, and I wasn't going to hide that I was on this medication, and I wasn't going to hide, if there was a particular day where it was like my brain just wasn't braining, and I could just say, all right, this is not computing here. I need a minute. Say that again, and people are just like, okay, no big deal. So it's, I think it's different reactions when I come at it from a very matter-of-fact standpoint, that this is just who I am, and I make no apologies for that. And well, unless I'm like, sorry, I didn't quite catch that, but other than that, I'm not. And I think that really resonates with other people is that they don't feel like they have to handle it with like kid gloves, or like, ooh, can I say that, am I about to say the wrong thing? And because for me, it's just like, this is me, and there's no shame in that.
No, I think that's really important. Whether what you're dealing with is coming from like you said, like an outside diagnosis or whatever, being able to have those conversations can feel really weird, right? It can feel like you're not sure. Like, there's a lot of people that don't feel like they're in a resourced enough position to be able to be open about these kinds of things. And I feel the same way. Like, I live with anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder, in addition to a bunch of other fun health stuff. So
ADHD as well. So that's
a
lot of fun.
And
then the hyperfixation is the fun one. When someone comes to ask me a question, then I'm like,
it's like, no, I don't have the power of speech right now. I've been so focused on this. I cannot, give me 37 seconds to register you're even a person. Yes. Well, and I think this is important, right? We're having these conversations, and what we're finding, I think, in a lot of ways, is that the kinds of support that people need, or the kinds of the ways that people want to be freer to bring themselves to work, it's not as big a deal as it seems at the start. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a huge effort to, to compromise and include people. It's not a huge effort to talk about like, oh, okay, I understand you want your brain to be braining today. It's not listening to you. And that's okay. Like, these are things that we have to talk about, because I think there's a lot more people that don't fit the standard than people that think they do or should fit the standard. Yeah.
And Meg, what we've found at Siemens, right, Lizi, the more we speak up about this topic, the more people are coming forward and are saying, hey, I'm right there with you, I want to talk. We deal with a lot of the same issues. So, people like Lizi coming forward is, I mean, it's just paving the way for more people, right? To
And
come
one of
forward and start the
the
conversation.
and I know one of the things, Janet, that you and I have talked about is leadership self-disclosing. And
Yes.
I actually just recently got promoted to zone operations supervisor for the Southeast. So I have found myself in the unique position starting on Monday to be in a leadership position as someone who is self-disclosed. And so I hope I can be that support for other people as well who are, struggling with their own different abilities or caregivers, anything like that. So
no, I think that's really important. Like you said, opening up these conversations is hugely important. And I feel a big responsibility to do so because I'm supported, because I know Power Flies behind me, because I have, a support structure outside of work, all of that good stuff. But I think it's very important that those of us that do feel secure and do have that and are in leadership positions and are visible to talk about these things, because there's plenty of other people who want the conversations to be happening that are not resourced enough. They don't feel psychologically safe. There's a ton of people that can't have these conversations. So personally, I feel like it's a requirement for me, but also like, I don't put that on anybody else, self-disclosing should be for, to everyone's like, comfort level. I think that's super important.
Yeah. And it really depends on your situation, your own unique situation, because we've found it really depends, where you are in your career, how your management team is. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So it can be really challenging. And, back to the executives, I'm sure there are many out there that could actually join in the conversation more, but sadly, right, there's still sort of that stigma that people don't want to raise their hand and say, me too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, let's contrast this a little bit. I think I know the answer to this question is yes, but let's talk about some experiences that y'all have had where you had to check part of yourself at the door. I want to talk about a little bit what that was like in contrast to being able to bring your full self to work. Lizi, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I'll start with when, I first came back from the hospital, coming back to work and on this brand new med regimen and, mentally all out of whack and everything. And I would just take my meds like I'm taking my medicine, and I would get comments like, you need to put that stuff away. People are going to think you're a druggie or don't take
a druggie, a prescribed one.
I'm like, if this was like insulin, would you be saying the same thing? So that was what really drove me to get to that point of, what is the difference in mental health, physical health? And some of the medications I take are for my physical health, for my nerve damage. So I'm just doing what the doctor told me to do. And you're going to make comments about it? Like, no. You know what? No, I'm not playing that game. So that was when I really broke through and was like, I'm not going to be ashamed of this because there's nothing to be ashamed of in it. So,
well, it can also act as like a bit of a litmus test a little bit, right? Like, my husband has also been hospitalized for mental illness. So I remember what that was like for him coming back. And he also has type 1 diabetes. So he was very much in that, oh yeah, y'all, we are just racking them up. You can tell all of my stuff, all of it. But truly, like, he had the same kind of thing. He has type 1 diabetes. They absolutely respected when he needed to have, I need a snack. I need to go check my sugar. I need to go take a shot of insulin. They understand that, right? And then as he goes back to work and uses his white male privilege for good in opening up these conversations, people don't know how to react when you're like, oh yeah, sorry, I gotta go. I gotta take my antipsychotic. Like, they don't know how to react. And it's like, it doesn't need to be that big a deal. It really doesn't. They're equivalent things, right? I need my insulin. You need your meds. This is all like, you don't need to worry about it past that. Janet, I'm sorry, I cut you off in here, but like, Have there been
It's
points in your
okay.
career?
It actually, it's kind of, some of the topics are more applicable, right, to Lizzie, I mean, than me, but
Well, no, I mean, like,
um,
have there been times where you felt like you kind of had to check part of yourself at the door, whether it was,
yeah,
the
yeah.
mom part or the
Oh,
disabled mom
yeah.
part, or, literally any
I
of
have
it?
I feel like I have to like put on these many, many hats, right? And shift gears. Like today was a crazy rough day for me, trying to navigate this. And I have another situation next week that I'm trying to navigate because of my daughter. And it's year end here at Siemens. And I'm like, oh, today is just so even being here right now with this pile on was a little hard to get to this point. But I tell Lizzie this. So our ERG that we lead at Siemens, we have every month we have this meeting. It's called a safe space meeting, and everyone comes. They can be their authentic self. We do not record. What's said there stays there. Everything is confidential, and every time I go to those meetings, I am so stressed out from my day job. And I'm like, oh, I can't even deal with this. Why am I doing this? And I have to tell you, by the time we get to that hour ending, and it always goes an hour and a half, we all are smiling and we feel so much better because we're in a welcome, inclusive place where we can just vent and be ourselves and share what we have to deal with on a daily basis. We have a lot of caregivers like me. We have, and people who are caregivers and are also dealing with disabilities themselves too. So, it's a great community, and it really, I feel like it creates that sense of belonging. So I don't know if I answered that question. I think I totally did.
Well, but the safe space in ours is actually tomorrow. Our next one is tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
So, but it's great too, because then people can come in and ask for advice. So for someone like me who's, open about it and everybody knows, it's not a secret or anything like that. And they're like, they'll come in and ask advice about
How do you
disclosing to their leadership, or how do you find a therapist? I've had that one before. And, what should I be looking for? So it's really great.
Is this normal? I love the,
like just to be able to have those conversations and it not be weird, because it shouldn't be weird. It's like the same as asking for a dentist.
Who does your oil change on your car or something? You know what I mean? Like it's not, these are not subjects which are inherently weird or inappropriate. They're by and large subjects that we have been socialized to not talk about, either because that's somebody else's business and it's not mine or whatever, or just from pure ignorance. It's entirely possible to go through life entirely ignorant of how other people live in these situations. And I like that y'all specified that ERG is not only a safe space for, for support for the people who are within that demographic, because a lot of times ERGs can put more of an emphasis on like how they're kind of integrating with the rest of the company, or like engaging and educating that way. But I think it's hugely important to have that support and to know that like this is truly a safe space. It's not recorded. This is someplace for everybody to go because they know they will be with people who understand where they're coming from, or at minimum like are in that same world. So I think that's huge.
And we get a lot of people that jump in and never say a word. They just come in and listen. And I think that's really great too. But just want to listen and get that different perspective, or, that education, because sometimes we have educational meetings, and, it just varies from month to month depending on what we have to talk about. But we always find something to talk about, it seems.
Always. Oh,
of course. Okay, let's talk about boundaries. It can be kind of difficult, especially if you're a person that works with, different needs outside of what is maybe typical for a person in the workplace or for working parents. How do you reinforce a healthy work-life boundary, especially early on in a role? It's really easy to go in and start someplace and want everyone to know that like you're there, you're committed, everything's great. but it's really easy to feel like you're coming across as lazy or disinterested if you are trying to be firm about work-life boundaries or, you know, needing your time. Have either of you have experience on this with like how you have set and respected your own boundaries, especially when new at a job? Janet's nodding along. Janet, you want to start us?
Oh my goodness. Well, my problem is not setting boundaries. I tend to consume myself with my work, and I dive in and I end up stretching myself too thin. I have a hard time asking for help, and I've realized I cannot be superwoman. So I now, because I got myself sick from that, because I am a single parent and I have a lot of stress dealing with just my family life, but my job is very stressful too. And I have a hard time saying no. So it's very critical that I do establish those boundaries and healthy lifestyle habits because, I'm a little older than Lizi, so I have to watch that even more now because I find that stress can really, really affect me physically. And my day job is a lot, but somehow I always found the time to give back to this ERG because it's where my heart is and where my passion is. And, like you spoke about earlier, being a voice, my daughter, that's her biggest challenge is her speech. So for me, from the day she was born, I'm like, that is my mission in life. I have to be a voice for people who don't have one to speak up. So I have to be their advocate and their spokesperson. So somehow I managed to do it all, but it's very important to set the boundaries and make sure that you're taking care of yourself and making time for yourself, especially my yoga. That's my big thing now because it keeps me.
Yeah. No, I think that's wonderful and great advice. Yeah. Lizi, how about you? Have you had to do this before? Like you start a new job, you want them to think that to know that you're like excited and committed, but you got to respect those boundaries for yourself. Have you had to do this personally?
Yes. And I've had the same thing where it's, trying to be superwoman and I can do it all. I don't need any help. And there was one day it came to a head and I just had a complete like bawling, crying meltdown because I was like, I cannot do this. All of this. I can't do it. And so I think there's like two sides to that. You either do so much that you burn yourself out or you don't do enough. And it's how do you find that middle ground of, and I think for me it has been asking for help. When I need it, I ask for help. And to say, I feel comfortable going to my supervisors and saying like, hey, walk me through what you would do with this one. How would you handle this? Or am I understanding this correctly? And just really getting that feedback and that support from people around you. I think that's really the best way to help set that boundary of, I know I can't do it all, but what I can do, I'm going to do great. And then I'm going to go home at the end of the day and don't call me for nothing.
Yes. Well, and I think it's important that we remember, like, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, they will find someone else. The company's not going to go bankrupt overnight. Like the sky isn't going to fall. We're not looking at like, all I can picture is like Y2K, right? When everybody was terrified that like the computers were going to go down and mass hysteria. That's not going to happen, right? They will figure it out. So knowing that and knowing that you are replaceable, then make sure that you are taking care of yourself, because even with a company that has your best intent, like your best, best intentions in mind, they might still not really be supporting what you need in your life. So I think that is really, really important to delineate there that like, this is your responsibility to a large extent, but like, you shouldn't feel bad about that. Like, it's okay. They can replace you. They can find someone else, which means you need to make sure that you are your first priority. Oh man, got a lot of people chiming in the chat. I need help as a sign of strength, recognition of yours and others' talents, not weakness. I also struggle with this. I need help with something is like the 3 words or 4 words you'll never hear me say. But Yeah. Okay, Lizzie, I want to go to you first on this one. Can you tell us some specific strategies that you've used to prioritize your mental health while you are pursuing a successful career?
Oof, therapy has been huge for me. I've been in several different types of therapy, so I know what works best for me and what doesn't. Talk therapy is not my thing. When I had a therapist, I would always see her right after lunch and she'd be doing this. And I'm like, well, this is not really working, but then
I'm paying you to be interested in my problems and you're still falling asleep.
please, don't. I've never felt so unimportant as I did, when I'm trying to talk to somebody and they were just literally falling asleep in front of me. I was just like,
I could never.
But the therapist I see now, and we've gotten to a point now where she trusts me to actually call her if I'm having trouble. So we don't have like standing appointments anymore, but being able to, I had to kind of train myself in this through therapy to, instead of, reacting emotionally to situations, kind of pull that back, and medication helps that to pull that emotion back, because the reaction is not always the correct one. You can feel those things, but your reaction to it doesn't need to be based on those emotions. So for me, it's been really important, and I leverage my support groups that work with this to, go to my supervisor and, where I say, am I understanding that? Am I right to be feeling the way I'm feeling right now? And if my boss is like, yes, no, I totally get where you're coming from. And then you kind of feel that validation. But, I really think just making sure that you're reacting appropriately to situations and setting those boundaries, and just really take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're never going to be able to get to where you want to go career wise.
Yeah, I think that's good point. I've found good success, or at least I try to. I'm not perfect at this, but I found good success in, when I am having an off day, kind of leading with it, of like, hey, my favorite is the Norwegian classic of I'm here, I'm awake and not crying, or I'm here and not crying. And it's like, all right, sweet, I'm here. Because, like Janet, it's like you were saying, we all have stuff in our lives that we can't control, that we have to work around. And I think it is really important to kind of make that matter of fact, right? This is where I am today. When I'm having a depressed day, it might have been a struggle to get out of bed, and I have to come host a chat, right? Where y'all expect me to be bubbly and have a good, good time and be all excited. But it's really important, when I recognize it, to be able to say like, hey, I might not be so bubbly today. I'm still 100% head in the game. I want to be here. I'm excited to do this, but it might not look like what you think it's going to look like today. So I think that that's really, you are both setting really good examples there, of like not only maintaining that boundary, but like trying to do something that is concrete, that will help with your boundaries, or help with what your needs are within the company. Janet, do you have any like specific techniques that you've used when you are trying to kind of keep your mental ish together?
Well, I definitely exercise is a really important thing for me, because and if you looked at me, you'd be like, there's no way you run, but I do run, but I do it more for my mental state, and it really helps me like clear my mind. It's sort of like yoga. But just like Lizzie, I definitely am a huge supporter of therapy as well, because and you know what? I think everybody could use a third party objective, someone objective who's not your friends, your family. Everybody has an opinion then. They know the background. If you go to someone who's outside of that world, I just feel like you get such a clear perspective. So our employee resource, our employee assistance plan, they know me. I'm a frequent flyer. Because, I'm like, I need 6 sessions.
Yeah. I think we get 7 now, actually. I think we get since it's either 7 or 10 since I think it was 10 when COVID first started, and then
nice.
And now it's down to seven sessions that are covered by our EAP.
There you go. See?
Like it. Yeah. We got people
And
chiming
they-
in the chat with some of the stuff that they use that works. So I'm loving those suggestions. Joanna says that they color or doodle. Guarav says that they cook. I'm also a big fan of therapy for everyone, all of my homies. If I hit the lottery, everyone's getting therapy.
I used to do a lot of coloring too when I was in Johnson City, actually, because it was very high stress working. It was a call center, just call it what it is. It was a call center, and very high stress some days, and typically a lot of very frustrated, angry customers, and I would just be sitting there on the phone while I'm just coloring away, in between calls or whatever. If somebody was rambling on, I'd be sitting here just I'll just color this one spot while you talk, and then go back to typing, kind of thing. And but
you're keeping up like a steady slow drip of dopamine.
Yeah, exactly.
Got my book right here.
There it is. I don't know where mine's down there in my bookshelf, but
yes. Oh my gosh. And y'all, thank you for chiming in the chat here, y'all. We've got some really great activity and advice going on. Trista had shared that they were on FMLA, and every time they came back from it, they were bullied. That's some bullshit. That should not happen to you. I'm so sorry. But yeah, it's a huge thing, right? We want people to be able to talk about this in a way that they don't feel like they're going to be penalized or, and in any way, inconvenienced or marked down because of it. When we're talking about navigating that self-disclosure, Lizzie, you had talked about how you have no shame in this. You just lead with it. I am the same way. But when you are navigating that self-disclosure, was there anything that you were worried about before you made it? Things that you were concerned about? What led into that factor for you to say, yep, I'm going to self-disclose and share this?
For me, it was actually my supervisor at the time, because he knew, my mom was in touch with him, letting him know what was going on while I was in the hospital, because I didn't have a phone. And so he knew what was going on before I ever came back to work. And so from that, it was like a little awkward in a moment, when I was first walking back in, and I was like, oh, is it going to be different? Is it going to be weird? And he just nothing had changed. He just went about daily business as usual. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of just followed his lead with it. And a few years ago, I went through a leadership development program and had the opportunity to meet our head of DEI. And that was when I saw my opportunity, because we were talking in that particular class about invisible differences, and disabilities came up, but mental health didn't. So I was like, wait a second, here I might be able to say something. And I was like, when she said, does anybody have any questions? I was like, hey, me.
Yes.
And so that was the point, I just, I had almost said something, because this happened in, I want to say July of 2020. And in May, because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, I almost said something in May about it, but then I decided to wait until, when I didn't feel comfortable with it at that point. But then
you wanted it to come up organically.
I guess a little more, not necessarily, but I just didn't, it wasn't the time for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't the time for me.
Yeah.
And then when I got to meet Nichelle, who's our head of DEI at Siemens, and I was like, wait, I'm ready now. I'm ready to say something with all these people in this call, in this training, and it was just received so well. And that was the point where I was like, I'll say it to whoever, I don't care,
Oh yeah.
I'm living my truth, and that just I am me, and that's it.
Yeah, of course.
Janet, and I happen to like me, so.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's one of those things. Once you like yourself, once you know yourself and you like things about yourself, you are bulletproof. I don't care what you think about me. It's fine. I'm telling you, it's glorious. I spent way too long not in this state of liking the weird stuff about myself. Okay.
I just love it because we have people like Lizzie, and we have more people coming forward. So we have a nice handful now that have raised their hands and come forward and spoke up. And had great experiences. So we're hoping that will continue. We hear very little, thankfully, of bad experiences, but sometimes, right, people
Yeah.
will come to us and vent. So
Yeah.
we
Do you
try
have
to
any
help
advice
them
for people?
navigate through, you know.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people that are facing, you know, they self-disclose, but they might be facing some unsupportive leadership?
Well, we always have to tell them that we have to partner with their P&O side. But, you know, we do tell them, you know, like Lizi and our other members who actually live with disabilities will help them, you know, with their experiences. So I think that definitely helps, especially if they have somewhere to go that they can talk about it. So what do you think, Lizi?
We have definitely leveraged the strategic council before in cases where accommodations were less than up to par. Well, I guess
Yeah.
subpar, but you know, less than ideal. And so we've definitely leveraged the council for that to try and get some momentum going. And we've had ERG members who have like our option to chat with our IT now, which you used to have to call every time. And he's like, I'm hard of hearing, you know, I need to be able to see on the screen what's happening. And so he was really a driving force in us being able to get a chat option, you know, for the deaf or hard of hearing community. And I think having that support of our ERG plus the council has really helped to drive that, you know, that desire for people to want to say something to somebody and feel like they have a team behind them that's like, yeah, we've got you, we'll help you get this, you know, accommodation or what have you. And sometimes with leadership it just comes from a point of ignorance that they're like, you know, I've had sad days and I still get up and come to work and do my job and, you know, bootstraps and all that fun stuff. And it's just like, it doesn't work like that. I'm like, it just doesn't work like that for like, it's a spectrum, you know, disabilities on a as a whole are a spectrum.
Well, and even the same disability doesn't present the same every day. You know, there are days where it is like an 80-pound weight vest is on my chest and I am peppy and ready to go, but I am struggling through a like super low energy day or something. Like it's really important that we recognize that the accommodations needed are more than likely not outside the realm of what is possible. And it's not that hard to start figuring out, okay, even if what accommodations you need we can't do, what are the workarounds? Where's the compromise? Where are we trying to support you? And I think that's really important. I want to stay on this topic of accommodations. Sorry, Janet, you were
No. I was just going to say, I'm glad Lizi brought up the council because that council, right? We have leadership representatives from many areas across so it's more functionally driven. So you'll have like hiring people there, retention, recruiting, we have accommodations, we'll have our real estate people are involved with that. So to have that council and the attention of our leadership team to actually care enough, right, to put together this council and focus on these key areas was, right, it was so overwhelming and such a great thing to see Siemens actually like, wow, we really like, I'm so thrilled to be part of the transformation and how we're really diving into this space and making a difference, right, for everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so on the subject of accommodations, what is your advice about asking for reasonable accommodations without oversharing? You know, it can be really easy, especially if you have somebody who, like, if the issue is just ignorance, it can feel like you're kind of having to fill in all of the boxes for this person. So, you know, what are some of the things that you would recommend if somebody wants to ask for accommodations? The person that wrote this in question specifically said, I tend to feel guilty when I choose to prioritize myself. So let's talk about this. What is your advice for someone who's trying to ask for reasonable accommodations? Lizi, what was this like for you?
For me, like I said, because I've been so open and, you know, matter of fact about it when I do need accommodations, you know, to say like, hey, I might need just a slower day today. Like, I'm not going to be my usual, you know, outrageous self that I normally am, and I might just need to dial it back today. And if it comes to the fact of unsupportive management, I mean, leverage your HR contacts. That's literally what HR is there for, or, you know, to say, we have like a whole form, I think, that we could fill out to ask for accommodations. I've been lucky enough to just be able to go to my management and they, okay, you know, no, or maybe tomorrow, you know, if you can kick it up a notch today, then we'll let you have it easy tomorrow. Some kind of thing like that. But or we could put off this project, you know, another day or two until you're feeling 100%. And I think for me, it's just been treating it as a matter of fact type thing. And I don't feel the need to share every particular symptom I'm having that day, as much as I could just say, I'm having an off day.
Mm-hmm.
And they're usually like, okay, because people get it when you say I'm having an off day. I might just need to push this one project, you know, if we could move that deadline a day or two more, and I'll have it, you know, as perfect as you could possibly hope for, kind of thing. And generally, you know, I find that's been well received. In the case of unsupportive management, I would say just leverage your HR contacts to ask for it in a more official capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like Lizi said, it's on our website. So I think it is it's pretty confidential. But of course, if your manager needs to be aware, but you know, we have great HR partners. That's our P&O group, I guess. What are they? People in organization.
Yes, people in organization.
So
we're really like, I have a friend that just got hired on with smart infrastructure, and I'm just like, welcome to like the best side of Siemens, because our it's so much support. It's wild to me. So
it is.
Well, and I'm loving what you're all are sharing with us here, and I want to call out, because this is usually a question we get a lot, is people will ask about like, well, what is a reasonable accommodation? Go to the ADA website, ada.org, I think is it, or ada.gov maybe. Check that out. The ADA website has a ton of like initial examples of like, hey, if you have this condition, these are some reasonable examples of accommodations. But it's truly, I mean, this kind of goes back to your boundaries talk, right? No one's going to set up boundaries for you. They're just not. And no one is going to know what you need apart from yourself. And I know that can be really hard, right? Because especially for me, like with my mental illness, it is not always apparent to me what I actually need. So you know, these are hard conversations, and like, it's difficult to try and figure out what you need at the moment, let alone what might keep working over time.
Right.
So, you know, it does kind of, it highlights the importance of having that transparency and that open communication and feeling supported, you know, with your supervisor. But it also goes back to taking this active role and saying what you need, because like, they're not going, if you need accommodations and you just say, hey, I need accommodations, they're not going to know what to say.
Right.
Right.
It's so for me, like just yesterday I had this conversation where I'll be moving back into the office, and I'm like, I need a standing desk, like not one of those pull up and drop down stations, because that still leaves everything else, you know, down here at desk level. I'm like, I need the entire thing up here, because with my neuropathy, it makes it really difficult to just sit. This desk is specifically geared towards how I need to sit. I'm like, I need the same thing at the office too. And they're like, well, I mean, I need it. So
like, I don't know what you want me to say.
If you don't want me to go back out on FMLA for nerve surgery, I need it.
Right? Yeah.
And you know, Meg, I should tell you this. I was recently at a conference for an organization called Disability In, and one of the panel discussions, they were talking about accommodations, and everyone in the room was like, we hate that word, because it makes it sound like you need a crutch, right? Accommodations should be like, and someone threw out the coin term, which I stole, productivity tools. I like that much better. I'm like, can't we change that to productivity tools? Because everybody can use those. It's not an accommodation so much that you
And
need.
it's one of those things where it's like, I remember working in an office I had an ADHD diagnosis by that point. And I remember working in an office that was open plan, because isn't that just lovely? And your low little, like, you have your own cubicle. No, you don't. It runs to here. And I remember sitting in this office and trying to do my job with salespeople who were on calls all day and being like, well, I can't focus if I have somebody else's conversation in my ear all the time. So we went from a simple request of like, hey, can I just have headphones? Like, can I just wear headphones in the office? I know we're not supposed to, but like, can I do that? It's a simple accommodation, right? It's
Right.
small. It's so small that it's not that big a deal. I think that's really, super, super important to focus on. Okay, we only have 9 minutes left. I told y'all this would go
no.
way faster. I know, I'm telling you, Lizzie was nervous and I told you it was gonna go way faster than you thought. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Janet, I'm gonna go to you first on this one. What is your advice for navigating moments of self-grief and family emergencies at work? Let's talk about what this looks like in practice.
That one is all on Janet.
Yeah.
That is all Janet.
So we talked about this morning. I am going to limit you. You've got 3 minutes to answer this question.
Well, I know I have to be ready to pivot at any moment. So like just a second ago, my daughter was right back here because her TV is not going on. So she's not happy right now, but I'm like, that's okay. That's okay.
We'll figure it out.
I've found that I have to understand that at any moment in time, my day could change drastically, and whatever I thought I had planned for today may have to go to tonight. And I may have to just tell everyone, sorry, gotta get going right now. I have an emergency. And, thankfully I work with really great people who understand that. And, everybody has an emergency once in a while, so you have to pivot and do what you have to do.
Yeah, of course.
So
I do want to call out, we got some really good answers and people sharing stuff in the chat. E. Jones had chimed in saying, not sure how safe it is for the BIPOC community to share or request accommodations. That's an intersectionality that really needs to be considered. And this is huge, y'all. We could have an entire hour on this subject alone. I mean, we could have an entire summit on this subject alone. But this is also why I feel like it's important, as somebody who exists in spaces as a white woman, like, it is up to me to make sure that we're having these conversations, because I am probably in a more resourced or more secure position than a lot of other people. And so I do think that's huge, and we really need to have people thinking about things in these terms. It's like when you said y'all were talking about invisible differences and how it was kind of one of the first times that conversation was being raised. We really need to think in terms of intersectionalities in this as well. Nobody is just one thing. I'm not just a person with ADHD. Janet's not just a mom. Liz isn't just just a person with ADHD either. Like, these are facets of us as people. All right, we've got 4 minutes left. Let's see. Okay, I want one more question from people. Lizzie, I'm going to go to you first. What's the best way to present ourselves as an ally in the workplace? So as people who are already within the community or already involved, the angle of, hey, I know what that's like, is kind of already there. If you are not within the community, but you want to make it known that you are there to support people, how would you like to see this for you personally?
I think for me, because everybody at some point in their life is going to suffer from some kind of anxiety, some kind of depression. So even just to have those moments of saying like, oh, my anxiety is through the roof right now, and then I'll look at you and go, they get it. And it might not be that you have a complete diagnosis and have to take regular medication or regular therapy like I do, because everybody's anxiety presents differently, but everybody can have moments of it, right? Of feeling that increased heart rate and the palms sweating and brain racing and everything else. And I think
fun, isn't it?
It's so fun. Oh my gosh. My favorite is when you have to have the yearly like reevaluation, and they always ask like, are you ever worried about anything in particular? No. How often?
No, that's why it's general anxiety.
like I worry about nothing and everything at the same time, and it just happens for no reason, and then I get anxious about my anxiety happening, and just this whole whirlwind. But just knowing that other people can understand it, and just even just a random comment of like, oh, I felt so depressed yesterday, I couldn't even do the dishes. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have a diagnosis, but just to use that terminology in kind of a more normalized way, as opposed to like, oh, hush, hush, you know, we don't talk about that kind of stuff kind of way. Just normalize the conversations around it.
I think that's a good one.
I love that.
Yeah. All right, y'all, we've got 4 minutes left. I want to make sure that we are able to get to our last slide here. So let me get that opened up for y'all. But again, if anything here that we've talked about has sparked your interest in Siemens, I'm going to share the link to their company page in just a moment. They are hiring. They've got a bunch of open roles. So I definitely recommend that you go and take a look at that. On here. There we go. All right. So these are some questions that we had asked of Janet and Lizi prior to today's session starting. And I wanted to make sure we saved a little bit of time to go over some of these. So the first one I want to go over is, Janet, you described the company culture as inclusive. Could you give us an example of that?
I would say just the focus that Siemens gives on inclusion of all types of employees. We have 10 ERGs at Siemens. So we have a pride group. I can't even, I'm afraid I might miss one if I don't, if I start listing them all.
We try to list all of them. Yeah, there's so many.
But we really, really, really represent and support all different employees from every race, sexual, then, you know, preference, I mean, whatever, disabilities. I feel like Siemens, we're just so welcoming and inclusive in our ERGs, which many people don't hear about, but we try to talk about to promote them. It does create that culture of inclusion. It really does. And we're seeing it evolve. It evolves every day, and the focus that we have from our strategic council and our DEI management is tremendous. So that's just how I feel. Yeah.
Right. Okay, Lizi, I want to go to you for your top tip for someone who is interviewing. Is this Siemens specific, or is this do you think this applies no matter where people are interviewing?
I would say it applies no matter where in the process.
Okay. Now let's see, Janet, your advice was to believe in yourself and show up as your authentic self. And Lizi's advice was be confident in yourself and in your abilities. Lizi, how have you displayed this confidence before? Because I know as somebody who suffers from mental health issues, it can be really difficult to present myself to my best. You know, I want to put my best self forward, but I also don't want to give people the impression of like, oh, I'm a superhero and this is going to be great. This is going to be excellent. You know, I can do literally everything. I live on water and sunshine. I don't need sleep. This is, you know, fabulous. You know, how have you done that when you've shown up someplace and wanted to really take that ownership of your abilities? What does that look like for you?
It's really just hitting the ground running, but then also understanding where my limitations are, and to be able to stop and say, like, I need you to go over this just a little, just a tinge more, and taking lots of notes. Yeah. I have notebooks everywhere. So
yes, love it. Okay. We do have people asking questions in the chat about you know, stuff that's Siemens specific. We don't have any recruiters on the line, apologies, but I do just want to highlight, if you have questions, you can always send them in to hi@powertofly.com. That's just hi@powertofly. I also shared links for where you can connect with our speakers on LinkedIn if you'd like. But if anything that we've said here has sparked your interest about Siemens, I really encourage you to take a look at their company page. The other thing I want to highlight is, if you are actively seeking but don't see anything right now that suits you with Siemens, click that follow button. It's going to let us tell you when they post new roles, so we'll take some of the weight off of you in your job search. But we're also going to let the Siemens team know that you're interested in working with them even before you fill out an application, which means that the next time there's open roles, it's that much more chance that your profile will be looked at to see, like, do they fit, you know, this new thing that we're looking for. So I very, very much recommend that you take advantage of that follow network. It's also important, if you're not job seeking, putting companies on your follow network means that when you are curious about what your next opportunity might be out there, you can come back to Powerfly and already have a short list of companies like Siemens that really walk the walk and talk the talk. Oh, if you want to follow those companies, you'll go on their company page on powerfly.com. There's a big pink button that says follow at the top of every company page. All right, y'all, that's going to bring us to the end of time today. But Lizi and Janet, thank you both so much. It's been wonderful to get to spend the last hour with you, learn more about you as well as Siemens. Thank you so much for your transparency and sharing your time and expertise.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, to our awesome attendees, thank you all so much for coming. These events don't exist without you. I don't have a job without you, but even more so, I'm really glad that y'all came. You were so participatory, sharing advice between attendees. Absolutely love to see it. So thank you all so much for coming today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with Powerfly. If this was your first Powerfly event, I really hope it will not be your last. And if you are one of our frequent flyers, I cannot wait to see you on an event soon. Have a nice night, y'all. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.